Hello, this is Leslie, and I am the host of the Why Not Today podcast. This is a podcast to celebrate people who have been courageous and said, Why not today? I started this podcast in honor of my father, Patrick Kane, who often did say, Why not today? I'm based in Reston, Virginia, a planned community right outside of Washington, D.C., and thanks for joining us today. And I have a guest today, Dr. Sherri, who I really don't know well. I've been on a couple calls with her, but I'm excited to hear her story and um, let you guys hear her stories of courage. So I always like to talk before we get to meet the guests about connections and how we met. And one of my guests that's been on here before, Mary Foley, who's a friend from years ago, we reconnected a couple of years ago. She has a podcast. I have a podcast. We've been guests on each other's podcasts, and we've been like doing calls and sharing ideas. And one day I was like, I said, I almost feel like I need a coach for my podcast. She's like, are you asking me? I'm like, I don't know. She goes, I have a better idea. She's like, how about a mastermind? And so she's like, I've got two friends in mind, and I knew somebody. And so five of us came together, and we've had two calls now, but it truly feels like God put us together, and we
I agree.
Five more powerful women in line with what we're all doing. Different things, but the same. So I'm super excited to get to know you, Dr. Sherri, and hear more about you and your journey. So let's start with a quick introduction of you, who's Dr. Sherri, and fun fact, and then we'll get into the courage stuff.
Yeah, well, Dr. Sherri is really Sherri, a woman just like every other woman, navigating life, figuring out life, enjoying life, and now getting in a place in my life where I'm living really, really free. So that's who I am. Yeah. And a fun fact, I was thinking about this and I'm like, I don't really have anything super fun about me. I think the only thing that, we all have idiosyncrasies. I think for me, it's that I get injured easily. And so I break bones frequently. Thank God I haven't broken. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't broken anything in recent years, but in my 20s and 30s, I broke something regularly. Toes, fingers. I broke my hand. Yeah, walking up the stairs, just walking up the stairs, not doing anything adventurous. No, so that would be the fun fact.
Stories around that. Oh, that's funny. So tell me, what does courage mean to you?
Yeah, well, I would say the first thing that I've discovered about courage is that it's not something that you have to get. It's something you already have. So I have it, you have it, we all have it. So what it is it's a continual alignment of your actions with your convictions.
Oh, I like that.
That's how I see it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So like whatever you believe in, whatever you feel compelled to do, we all get these things and they're things that are in the back of our heads that we're like, they kind of nag at us. They chew at us a little bit. And we tend to, because we focus on what we see and what we think we should do, right? And the right path and all of that, we tend to kind of stuff it down. But that thing is always there, right? And so we feel it. We know it's there. Courage is taking that thing and making it alive and making choices in the moment that reflect that desire. That's the only way that desire gets filled.
Yeah, love that. I was just listening to a podcast this morning. Jamie Kern Lima, do you know her and her story? She's the woman that started It Cosmetics.
Okay.
Yeah, she started it, and she's got a book coming out about being worthy. And she started it because she had rosacea, and she was literally on the news, and they were telling her that something was wrong with her face. So she started a company, and everybody told her no, and she kept persevering. And a big investor said, I think, I'm interested. But then he said, yeah, based on your body size and the looks of you, you would not be a good person to promote. And she kept going, and she had the courage to say, you know what, God, what'd you say? God, rejection is God's protection. And she ended up selling her business to L'Oreal several years later for so many $1 billion. And she's like one of the richest women in the world kind of thing. Crazy, just the courage. Yeah. So let's hear about you, your journey. What have you done courageous? I know you've had a professional career. Now you're doing a nonprofit.
Yeah.
So what are you passionate about? Tell us about your courage and your journey and Things
Well,
you want to know.
I
Just with
actually
courage.
have two stories, but I'll start with this one, and then if we have time for the other one, because I think a lot of times we do compartmentalize as women, like professional courage versus personal courage, and I think again they're the same thing, right? It's just living out what we know to be right and true. And so when I used to practice as a clinical psychologist, such a privilege, such a beautiful privilege to be a part of people's lives and to hear their stories and to have them trust you and to have them be vulnerable with you. Really a beautiful process. I was good at it, all of the things. It was a blessing and I learned a lot. But what happened is I had a major shift. And I wouldn't say it's a major shift. Maybe it was just that the shoulds of who I was supposed to be and how I was supposed to become a clinical psychologist and hang out your own shingle. And you're supposed to do all these things. And I did all of the things. And then I realized, but wait, this isn't really what I wanted to do. And so God started bringing to mind that truth, that this wasn't really what I wanted to do, that I wanted to go out and speak and teach. And I wanted to talk to human beings like they're human beings, not like they're science experiments where we have to figure out what's wrong with them.
Right.
And so that's the whole, kind of platform of clinical psychology or any therapy work, is to find out the problem, name it something, label it something, and then treat the problem. Well, I think we're worth more than that. I know we're worth more than that. One, I don't think we're broken. I don't think there's anything wrong with us. And two, we don't need to be treated, right? We need to be encouraged and reminded that we were created with a specific purpose. And the idea is, how do I access that thing that's nagging, and how do I walk in that, right? Not how do I find out what's wrong with me so I can be like everybody else.
Right.
So God brought that to mind, and I started having trouble sleeping and at night, and I was
That's
like,
always my sign when
Uh-huh.
I am like something stern and I got to say no to
Yes.
something or say yes to something.
Yes, that's what it is. And so I just decided I no longer would diagnose people. And that eventually led to me shifting my career and shutting down my private practice, and no longer practicing as a clinical psychologist.
It probably took lots of courage.
So courage is not, I just got to address this. It's not a feeling, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, here we go, watch me do my thing.
Right.
It's not that. It's, I feel so strongly about this that for me, I wasn't even going to waste my energy considering the consequences of that.
That's awesome.
I had to do it. I had to do it. And so it was the only way that I could have peace, in my life. And so that's what the courage is. It's just the doing. It's not that you know what you're doing when you're doing.
Right.
It's not that you're fearless when you're doing. It's just the doing of what you feel compelled to do. And so, there were a lot of risks. There were a lot of consequences that came from that. There's this, I think, Leslie, I think that we confuse courage with outcomes that are always beneficial. And those outcomes aren't necessarily being the billionaire seller of IT Cosmetics. Okay.
No, absolutely not.
That's wonderful, but that's not, that's the outcome that we're looking for, that we want to see, what we can see. We kind of put our trust in what we can see, but the real outcome of aligning your doing with what you feel compelled to do with your convictions is the peace that you have from that.
Right.
It's the fulfillment that you get from that. And that's something nobody can take from you.
No, absolutely not. And I totally agree. When I left corporate America, it was the same kind of thing. What are you doing? You have a master's degree and you're going to sell, my full-time career is selling Mary Kay. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it.
Right.
But it gives me joy and fulfillment. And I love my life. And so many people I know now are getting to the age of retirement. And they're like, are you retiring? And they hate their life. They hate their job. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, I love what I do. It fills my cup and fills other people. Yeah. And Why Not Today is doing the same thing.
And I love that you said that. I love the question, why not today? Because sometimes people will say, I'll wait, right, until the timing is right, until the ducks are lined up in a row. The timing is never right.
Nope.
right? The timing is never, but the converse of that is it's too late.
Yeah.
And why not today says, no, it's not. If
Right.
if I'm still alive and breathing. So if you're at retirement age and you hate your job, why not today? It's not too late to start listening to that thing that's in the back of your mind going, go do this.
Right. And so I have run into a lot of people recreating lives and like, okay, what's next
Yeah.
in the why not today? And, my big why not today that I think I talk about a lot with this was when I quit my job. And a lot of people question it. And it wasn't like had not replaced my income. It was like there is a better world out there.
Yeah.
And literally, I made the choice to quit my job some arbitrary date. And I just knew I could work hard enough and I could still live. 6 months later, my dad had a major stroke and I was able to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have to go to work. I didn't have to report to somebody. And I had that flexibility. When I made that choice in November, I had no idea what was going to happen in
That's
my
right.
life. But I did say, why not today? And I did it. And I think, it's the big things, it's the little things, it's listening to your heart. It's not listening to the world, which I think, I'm sure you've got a lot of people and a lot of comments like, what the heck are you doing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was.
You probably still do.
Are you okay?
I do too.
Right? Are you okay, Sherri? Are you sure, yeah. Sherri? And yeah, because when you do go from 6 figures to 4, that's what happened to me when I followed that conviction and aligned my convictions. See, it doesn't mean that if you align your convictions with your actions that it's going to turn out well in terms of material things for you. But the fulfillment that we were talking about, the contentment and the peace that comes from that, and the knowledge that for me, that I'm being obedient to God in my purpose, that the gifting that he gave me, that I'm being obedient, I don't have to worry about that stuff. Right.
Exactly.
And so I think that the other piece of that, of aligning your actions, of being courageous, is that you don't have to have the whole plan figured out.
Yeah.
So when I shut down my practice, I really didn't know. I didn't have clarity. In fact, I started shutting down my practice in 2016. I didn't renew my license to practice in 2018, finally. So there was no more of that.
Right.
And then it wasn't until we're in 2023. It's been the last 6 months that I have crystal clear clarity on what my it is.
That's awesome.
Okay. So I say that to say that's 7 years.
Right.
Right. So when you step out and you start doing, you will get there, but you can't have in your mind, I'll do it once I have the whole plan figured out, because the plan comes to fruition as you're doing the doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's having the faith to say, okay, I'm going to take those little steps, those yes, why not todays.
Yes.
To reach that. And my guest that I had on 2 weeks ago was the same kind of thing. It was a God conviction, and she went into a ministry, but she said it took probably about the same time as you, and it takes time. And when we started this podcast recording, I told you I don't edit it. I record it. And it's one of those things, eventually probably I'll get there, but it's purposely not completely perfect.
Right.
It's just giving people hope to just do the one thing and take the one step and try the thing.
Right.
So, and speaking of not perfect, I'm here house sitting and dog sitting, and the dog usually sleeps all day. Now it's playing with the toy.
Of course.
So that's the background noise. Little Jack's behind us. So let's talk about what you're doing and what you left your full time or your practice for. And you can just when I just asked you that question, your face lit up.
Yeah. Well, it's because I'm doing exactly what I know I'm supposed to be doing, and all of my actions are aligned with that. So there's no gap in between what I want to do and what I am doing.
Right.
That's
so
the
talk about what are you doing?
thing. So what I am doing is I have a nonprofit. It's called Thriving Thoughts Global. I founded it in the middle of the pandemic in 2020, after I had the courage to leave a relationship and ended up in the basement of a friend's house. A lot can happen from the space of darkness, for those of you listening.
Yeah.
So I started this nonprofit, and the vision is to redefine mental health, to teach people what it is as opposed to what it is not, and to teach them that they can build and protect their own by changing the way that they think. So I tell people I left team treatment for team prevention. So that's what the nonprofit is doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you said you had another story you wanted to share.
Well, I kind of alluded to it.
Okay.
That was the second courageous thing that I did. Was I had been in a relationship that I thought was it. You know, I thought it was my forever. I was 40 when I got into the relationship. We were together almost 5 years. We were living together. I thought this was my it, but something in the back of my mind, and if I'm honest, since year two, maybe the end of year one together, I knew this wasn't it. Okay. But everything I did, I tried to make that nag go away.
Right.
And it wouldn't. And thank God it wouldn't. Thank God it wouldn't. And
Hmm.
so, but as this was happening professionally, where I was, shutting down my practice and kind of navigating my path forward, started doing some organizational consulting, started doing some thought coaching work, as this whole idea of what it looks like to take charge of your thought space was developing and improving your mental health. My relationship was deteriorating precisely because I was doing that work, right?
Right.
And so I understood for myself that this was not something that I could stay in. There was my own timing to that, where I had to come to a place of seeking and listening and really being ready. That come what may, this was a decision I needed to make, like the leap I made when I shut down my practice. It's a very different one though, right? It's your heart. It's a heart leap. Personal one. And so I made the decision, I'm going to have a conversation. And if I don't hear what I need to hear in this conversation, then I'm going to leave. And so we had the conversation that night. I couldn't even contain myself. So I was teaching a college class, and I was on my way home from the college class, and I just said, hey, we need to talk. I can't wait till we get home. We need to start talking now. We finished the conversation when I got home, and I just said, okay, all right, well, then I'm moving out. And within 5 days, I had everything moved out. I was into a friend's basement because I had nowhere to go. My career had ditched, so I really
Right.
didn't have a lot financially to go on at the time. And I had my two big dogs. And my friend just happened to say, in another conversation entirely, you can come and stay in my basement and you can bring your two dogs. And I'm so excited for you. This is the beginning of a new chapter. And it was.
That's so awesome. Gotta love those friends too.
Yeah.
That you have those people in your life that are just there for us.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your nonprofit and how you help people, and how is it a nonprofit rather than a for profit? And I know you're writing a book, so let's talk about all the things you're doing around that and
Yeah.
how you can assist people. Or
Yeah, absolutely. So the nonprofit again it's all about messaging and awareness. So it's creating mental health literacy. It's giving every person the understanding that if you live and breathe and exist, you have a mental health, right? Mental
Mhm.
health is not reserved for certain people. So the biggest part of what we do is messaging. We're redefining it. We're saying mental health is thinking, feeling, and doing on purpose for your benefit and growth. That's what mental health is. Mental health is not anxiety. Mental health is not depression. That's mental ill health. Mental health, thinking, feeling, and doing on purpose, right? So self awareness, being deliberate, being intentional to align your actions with what you say you want. That's one of our tenets. We have 7 tenets that people can find on our website, by the way, which is thrivingthoughtsglobal.org. So that's the biggest piece is messaging. So we do that through billboard campaigns, social media campaigns, YouTube videos. We're developing a podcast. All of our messaging is the biggest piece. And then we narrow that down into having community conversations. So where we can talk about mental health in the way that we're really talking about mental health. So we have a gathering called Grounded that I host in Franklin County, Pennsylvania, where I am once a month at a coffee shop, and people are welcome to come. That information's on our website. Welcome to come, and we just have conversations. I ask questions, and it gets people to think differently. So that's taking that messaging and starting to apply it now personally. And then the next level of work that we offer is online courses. Those will be launching in 2024. And the first online course, so these are courses that are for highly targeted audiences
okay.
who are going through certain experiences, to give them the tools to thrive, to grow through these experiences that they go through, as opposed to coping with or managing. And so the first one that we're developing is based on my first solo book, which was Breakup Breakthroughs. That's available on Amazon if anybody wants to check that out. That was written in my friend's basement after I left. And it's 10 questions to ask and answer so you can thrive in the trauma of a relationship breakup. So that will be the first one that we're doing, but there will be other ones that will be about your spouse is diagnosed or maybe dies with brain cancer. You are moving and your child is having trouble adjusting to school, like just normal life stuff that we go through, that when we respond to it with intense feelings, we can sometimes, based on the current mental health system structure, we can sometimes say there must be something wrong with me.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with you. You're human. You're responding to this in a normal human way. And then the very, very base level of what we do, the most narrow point of service provision, is thought coaching. And right now I provide that. That's virtual. It's individual. It's also the highest cost, right? So all of the messaging and the awareness and the education, all of that is free. But you get down to the individual level, and that's a cost to the consumer. And I do that right now, but the eventual goal is I will be training, certifying TTG certified thought coaches who will be able to then go and do that as well. So that's how we redefine mental health and teach you to prioritize your own.
Love that. And I love the thrive component. That, we're not just surviving, but we're thriving. I had a conversation with somebody recently who, unfortunately, I think it was more often I've heard of relationships that have kind of crumbled or stopped during COVID. And I think it was realization like, okay, what am I doing? Like, let's reevaluate life. Listening to ourselves. But I was talking to somebody who they never had children, and her husband was very much introverted, and they did everything pretty much themselves. And so she looked at me. She asked me the question I've never had anybody ask me: how did you escape marriage? I'm like, okay, nobody's ever asked me that. But she's learning how to be friends and have friends and have those relationships with people, not in like a long-term loving, marriage relationship, but friends.
Yeah.
And because I've never been married, I've got a great group of friends. And I was talking to somebody else recently, divorced, and she's like, you need to talk about how do you thrive being single? Like the world tells us, we have to be married, have to be in this relationship. But, you can thrive in all areas of your life. And I love that you're addressing that and talking about it.
Yeah.
And it's such a big need. I've interviewed somebody else on this, Laura Hayes, and she talked about, she's got a group called Brave Girl Project.
Okay.
Teenagers and teenage girls and starting young. And that's one of my passions with Mary Kay also, is to help the young girls, teach them how to take care of their skin and teach them how to feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
A girl's self-esteem, they said, is highest at age 10. Which is really scary.
I think it's probably, it's probably earlier now. If I look back at my own story, I went on my first diet, like saltine crackers, cottage cheese, tuna fish, right, at 8.
Yeah.
So, and that was back in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah. Just crazy. So, I love what you're doing and helping people. And before we're done, I'll have you share how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah.
I've gone on your website, but I haven't dived deep into it, but I'm going to. And I think we've got lots of great resources and connections. I knew I wanted you to be on here just to share your story. So let's talk about, how do you encourage other people to be courageous, to do the things, to listen to their heart and their God calling?
Yeah. The first thing that I do as a thought coach, as a messenger of all of this, is understanding that the first thing you have to do is be honest with yourself. And if you can't be honest with yourself, you're never going to fulfill your God-given purpose. Because the way I describe it is, we spend, especially as women, if you look back to when you were a little girl, you will see who you are. You will see who you are, the person you are. For me, I hid myself away. I recorded myself like I was speaking to people. I wrote stories. I entered them into contests. I was a speaker, a writer, all of that before I came back to being that. And when we look back at Yeah, when we look back at who we were when we were a little girl, we see a lot of who God designed us to be. But then what we do is we start piling on all of these shoulds, and they're like layers, right? And then we get older and then we start to realize, wait, that's not part of me. Okay, let me take that off. Wait, that's not part of me. Okay, let me take that off. But the only way to do that is to start investigating, is this really me, or is this who I think I should be? Is this who somebody has told me to be? Right? Like, where am I getting my ideas? Where am I getting my worth? Where am I, when I go out, am I looking to get somebody's feedback, right? Or am I looking to be me? So that's essentially how I do it. I get people to be honest with themselves by asking them questions that get them to think differently. And I'll leave you with this very, very short one. When you say, I have to do something, my question is, do you have to?
Right.
The answer always challenge me, prove me wrong. The answer is always no. Right. But as soon as we can be honest with ourselves and say, I choose to, then we can start evaluating, why am I choosing that?
Yeah.
Do I want to choose that? Right. Yeah.
I do these to share with people and give people hope and share people's stories, but really I think I get more out of these than anybody else taking pages of notes. I'm like, all right, some things I was struggling with last night thinking about. You just gave me lots of confirmation, so thank you.
Oh, good.
My own therapy sessions. Nothing wrong. There's lots that, following our dreams. And,
yes.
And that's what I'm doing with this.
Yeah.
And just, excited about touching lives and helping people and all the people that God is just putting in my path that have similar visions, and hearing people's stories. I'm like, oh my goodness, we have to share your story. Just so many cool stories and people.
Well, thank you for making a platform for us to be able to do that and share with one another and encourage. I mean, I think that's courageous, right? Is sharing your story, especially in the space that we call the in-between, right? Because my nonprofit isn't what I envision it to be, but it is exactly as it should be right now, because I'm showing up in it every day, right? And I still have ideas and I still have big things that we want to accomplish, but I don't need to be at I sold my nonprofit is impacting billions of people across the globe place to share my story of courage. And I say that to say, we don't need success stories. We need courage stories in the in-between. So thank you for providing a space for that.
My pleasure. And, and I think the thing that attracted me to this story, that It Cosmetics, is not the $1 billion sale, but she's writing this book about being worthy.
Yeah.
And all the things that she was told she couldn't, or all the self-worth things. And like this book she's writing, 100% of the profits are going to charity. And,
That's
she's
awesome.
using her message for good.
Yeah.
And it's, it's those courageous steps, and one thing after the other. And
that's right. One step in front of the other. And you don't need to know what comes next, but you can't stop.
No. Yeah. Just taking those steps and realizing, and I share this lots. I wear a starfish necklace often. Do you know the story of the starfish?
No.
This guy was walking down the beach. And if you listen to this podcast, you probably heard me say it many times, but this guy was walking down the beach and picking up starfish and throwing them in the ocean, and picking up starfish and throwing them in the ocean. And this man comes by and goes, what are you doing? He goes, I'm saving the starfish. He goes, there's thousands here. You will never make a difference. And he picks one up and throws it in the water. He said, I made a difference with that one.
Yeah.
I just feel like every day that we can just make a difference in one person's life.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just our own. And
that's right.
And you never know the ripple effect and the person you meet, and just how I connected with you.
Yeah.
Was from Mary, who I met years ago, totally lost touch with. And it was, a God moment that I was driving through Richmond, and I just reached out to her. I'm like, do you want to meet for coffee? And it reconnected us, and so many things in my life has happened because of that one thing. So I really try to listen to that voice, and it sounds like you do too. God's voice says, do these things. Have the courage to say, why not today?
That's right.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being on. Anything else you want to share before we end this?
No.
How do people find you and connect with you? And I will share it in the show notes, all your resources.
So check us out, thrivingthoughtsglobal.org. We're at Thriving Thoughts Global on all the social channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Yeah, keep an eye out for us there. If you want to follow me personally and learn more about my personal ministry, which is helping women who are professing believers to take every thought captive, you can follow me at Dr. Speaks on Instagram or at Dr. Sherri on Facebook.
Okay, I'm going to follow all those things in. And you're writing a book too.
Yep, that's my personal ministry. It's called Mindset of the Redeemed.
People keep saying I should do that, and that is just not something I feel called to do. But maybe one day.
There you
Never
go.
know.
Yeah.
So, well, you can find the Why Not Today podcast on all the platforms. I got a website, whynottodaypodcast.com. I have Why Not Today swag, which I really want to share the message that people encouraging other people. So we have stickers and vinyls and cups and T-shirts to share the mission, and I think we're going to have some other things coming. So you can find all those things on the website. And feel free. We'd love to have you review it, like it, share it, and just rate this podcast and share with other people. And I'd love to hear, if you're listening to the podcast, what you learned. So, Sherri, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
and
you.
Look forward to getting to know you better. And maybe when your book's out, we'll have you back on.
Would love it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. All right. And goodbye.